Hi, and welcome back to Plastic Models by Regular Dude and part number 4 of the Dragon 1/35 scale SdKfz 251/21 drilling. First things first, if you don't want to watch this long version of these build steps and you want to see a more condensed recap type video, please click on the link in the description down below or on the end screen of this video. Then you can go watch a shorter version and get kind of the same information without having to actually watch me do the work. So let's get cracking. All right, last time we left off on step number 9, which was the lower hull, including the side panels, as well as I jumped ahead, built this subassembly for the rear plate and doors that's supposed to be installed in step 11, and I went ahead and installed it here. And I explained why I did that in the other videos, but basically it was to make alignment of these easier overall. One other thing that I did not do was I did not install these parts here. I built them and I primed them. They haven't been painted yet because I'm going to paint them with some other stuff. But I built them, but I haven't installed them because there are no positive locating points in here, so I don't know exactly where they should go. I have a good idea, but I want to see how some other stuff fits first before I commit to gluing those in. So those are built. They're off to the side, ready to go. I also did not build this front visor here just because I forgot. So I'll need to build that because that will be utilized in the next steps. Real quick, there was one other thing that I did not build, and that was this part right down here, this bin. Okay, and as you can see, we have part F27, F26, F28, and 2 G12s or MD3s, which are photo etch parts. Now, here is a comment. Okay, number 1, F28, I'm not finding anywhere. Okay, so I have the F sprue here. I'm not finding a part 28. I'm not even finding a tab with a 28 on it, so it's not like something fell off. We've got 26, 27, 29, no 28. And most of the time these things are in numerical order. Now, it might possibly, for some crazy reason, be on one of the other sprues. However, here is my point. Okay, hold on a second. No. Here is my point. Okay, as you can see, part 28 fits inside. So it fits, let me zoom in here so you can see what I'm talking about. It fits in here and kind of rests on this ledge. Then, this part here fits on top. So my question is, what on God's green earth is the purpose of that plate? Now, maybe if you were so inclined, you could have this open so you could see that plate in there. Well, I don't know what it's for. Is it just like a shelf so you can put stuff on it so it's a little bit higher? I don't know. But is it really necessary to include that part in a kit when probably 90% of all people are going to build this closed? An even bigger question still, why isn't the part on the sprue? It's crazy. Just wanted to point that out. And the reason I do this, I'm not, okay, let me clarify something here. I'm not bashing Dragon by any means. Their kits generally look really nice when completed. They have a really good level of detail. Depending on the kit, they're generally easy to build, and you get a really nice finished product. Okay, but knowing what I know about Dragon kits through building them in the past and from just reading about different kits and some of the situations people run into, there are times when things need to be pointed out. There's inaccuracies in the instructions, whether it be how things go together or even numbers, or you know, parts just don't fit really like they should and need a little bit of finagling to get them to work. So understand, I'm not bashing these kits because, you know, or this kit, and I'm not even bashing it, I'm just pointing things out for people who might be watching this and might want to know going in. So that's, I just want to clarify that. I do not dislike this kit, but you know, there are certain things about it that, you know, need to be pointed out. Enough of that. Let's get back to work. Real quick, like, this was something I couldn't actually do on camera because my head would have gotten in the way. But what I've decided to do here, and I've decided to use the kit or the styrene parts for this right here. And the reason being is I like the detail on it. I mean, the detail is adequate. Now, they're a little bit thicker than the photo etch would be, but number one, it'll be easier to paint. Number two, the detail is fine. Number three, it's going to stick a lot better using Tamiya Extra Thin. So I glued that one in place there, and then what I will do is I'm going to spray these first, but then I'll put these, I'll spray that, spray these, get everything sprayed. Then I will glue these into place and then put the next batch of straps. So that's my plan, and I think that'll work best, especially since that's going to be inside. It's not going to be quite as visible, but it'll still look good. So really, so far, I haven't really had a need to use much of the photo etch, but a lot of people like photo etch, and it does look really good. But that's what I'm doing. Okay, so here you can see I got the brackets glued in here, 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 and here. Now I need to glue these in place, let that set up a little bit, then put this piece in where it goes, and then this one will go in front of that. And then this one goes in between those two brackets. And that will take care of the stuff prior from the previous steps. So I can move on with the upper hull. So I'm going to do that off camera because it's really hard to get these positioned inside of the camera without getting my noggin in the way. So I'll get it together and then I'll show you what I did. Okay, now I need to install this piece across here. So I'm going to show you where it's going to go, but again, I'm going to do this one off camera just for the sake of ease, because it's hard to do this stuff on camera sometimes. Well, it's hard to do it all the time. Oops. Okay, so this is going to go across here. See what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to... It's going to go across right there like that. And then this one will go inside of this one. But right now, I'm going to glue that in place. Alright, so I got that glued in there and painted. So this one goes here, like that. Whoops. So, still, I'm sticking to my guns when it comes to this, saying to do this before putting the sides on. That does not make sense at all, because these little tabs right here line up with specific points on these bends on the inner side. So it's better to get the structure in place, then put the accessories. Model Engineering 101. So there you go. So anyway, hopefully people will, you know, people may be really good at just guessing where that stuff goes. I'm not. So if not, hopefully somebody will see this and it will be helpful in putting this thing together. Oh, crikey. Trying to get it level. Oh, man. I just drank a double shot, so got a little bit of the shakies going on. All right, so let's put a little bit of cement there. And I'm going to let that dry up before I glue that other part on as well. There, and then a little dab on the floor. Okay, hopefully I won't knock this out of place, but I've laid that part in place. Putting it on its side like this helps. So then it's just a matter of touching a little bit of glue there, realigning it. A little bit of glue there, man. I keep knocking it out of place. There we go. All right, and then once it dries, I can shoot it with some paint real quick. And then I just slid this one into place here. And I'll just hit it with a little bit of glue on the brackets. Like thusly. And then a little bit of glue on the end there like that. Boom. So now I can actually get started with what this video is supposed to start with. Step 10. All right, so now we're ready to go. So what I'm going to do is before I glue this stuff on the outside, I'm going to go ahead and glue this stuff on the inside. Reason being is I think I'm going to try and get all that on the inside and then get this glued on top and then glue the rest of the stuff on. I will glue this part on this front plate right here. I will glue this on first. So I'll do this, then that, then I'll put it on top, then I'll put these other parts. So, and this is one of those places where you got to pay attention. I'm doing the late version, so I need to do this set of instructions, which basically looks like the only difference is the engine cover, the bonnet, the hood, depending on where you're from. So let me get these parts cut off here, and then I will get those glued into place. Whoops. Sorry, folks. I glued these parts in and forgot I was supposed to be doing video of it. But very straightforward. They just fit right on the sides, touch a little glue. Got them primed. I'm using some new primer here, adding to the batch, and that's the MRP Fine Surface Primer Black. It's very, very thin like their paints, and you definitely have to build it up in layers, but it is super smooth and works very well and really easy to clean out of the airbrush. So 3 for 3. So I'm gonna go ahead and paint this stuff the interior color, and then I'll come back. All right, I got those internal parts painted, and now I can glue this radio in, hopefully the appropriate direction. Good Lord. Okay, there we go. All right, so I just need to glue that. And then I'm going to glue this into place here. Yeah, it's going to give me some hassles. First, I need to clean the paint off. Now, here's something to watch for if you're building something like this and things don't line up. Right there, see how it's kind of, maybe you can't see it on the camera, but right around this little corner here, it's a little whitish, like this got smashed down and this part wasn't lining up right. So I am just going to kind of give it a tweak and bend it back out. And hopefully get it to line up a little bit better. See, this side fits pretty well here, but this side was a little off. All right, so glue in right there. What I'm going to glue is I'm going to glue the edges first, and then I'm going to glue the bottom, because the bottom I need to make sure is lined up properly, because there's some weld detail there that it needs to be butted up against. So let that dry there a little bit. Let's see, can I do this side here? And then I'm just going to touch a little bit of cement here and give it a little push there, pushing it from the bottom and from the back. All right, next up, I'm going to glue this front plate on here. Just going to kind of hold it in place and apply, if I can get it to stay, the cement from the back like that. Okay, make sure it's pressed into place and bottomed out all the way around like that, and then let it dry. All right, so with the front plate glued in place, I'm going to start gluing this upper thing on. Now, here are some things that I'm going to do. Number one, I'm going to do like I normally do on long sections. So I'm going to start on one end. So right now I'm going to glue around this plate and this part here and here. Get those glued, let that set up really well. Then I'm going to glue the back like this. Then I'll worry about gluing this, because like I said, it looks like this thing got smashed at some point because the sides flare out a bunch. That may just be normal on these things, but it does flare out quite a bit. So I'm gonna have to do it in segments. So let us begin with this segment here. We'll see if I can do it on camera. So I'll make sure everything's lined up properly. We'll start here. And here. And there. Sides here and here. All right, so now gotta make sure it's all pressed together and as even as possible. Okay, so for here, let's see if I can clamp it. Oh, perfect. That'll work. And I'll do the same thing on this other side here. Ooh. That's not going to be as easy. See if I can do it without breaking anything. Oops, that might break that. That looks pretty good. Okay, so now let's let that dry. Alright, so now I need to glue this part back here. I'm not real thrilled with the fit of it, but I really don't see how else it could be accomplished. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this clamp here, and I'm going to clamp it from the side like this. Clamp it on the side. Now it just doesn't really seem, well, yeah, it does. It touches all right, I guess. Yeah. Looks like there's a couple of little stops right there that keep it from going too far. So that's fine. So anyway, I'm going to glue it like this, or clamp it like this to make sure the back is clamped up. Then I'm going to have to clamp it across this way somehow, because of the way this thing's made, it tends to flare out whenever you put any kind of pressure on it. So let me monkey around with this off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so using this Tamiya Weathering Master package, I was able to clamp it this way to keep everything together, clamped it this way to keep the sides together. So then all I need to do is glue it around these edges here, oh shoot, here and here. Make sure, just kind of slide it a little bit where it's even, and then hold it till it sets up. So yeah. I could probably tape it even, but we'll see. So let me do some glue here and here. I may have to add more later, but that seems to be the best course of action. Just make sure it's even side to side, equidistant. And then I was able to use a smaller clamp. Just had to put just a little bit of pressure, so part of it is on the top, part of it is catching on the hinge. So now I can just let that dry up. I may have to put some filler in there. Well, I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to put some filler in there and sand it down so it's smooth and even. But that looks passable to me. I can live with that. So let me set it down and we'll let that dry up. All right, so the back's all firmly affixed. So now I need to glue all the way down. Now I'm going to start at the front here because it's the one that needs the most pressure from a clamp, and get it glued and then just work my way down. So I'm going to be clamping this all the way, and hopefully it will stick. But I think clamping it just in about 3 spots should do it. Doesn't take a lot of pressure, just enough to squeeze it and hold it because of the bowing of these the sides here. So there it is. I'm gonna get some glue and run it along. What I'm doing is I'm looking at an angle at the seam on the inside to see if there's any daylight, because if there is, that means glue's not gonna stick, but it looks good. So here we go. All right, all that is glued into place. So it seems like that was probably the most challenging part of this kit, and it's doable. It's not that bad. It's just going to take some planning and some time. So anyway, that's all done. Now I did have some gaps back here, so using some black slow dry CA glue, I filled those in and let that dry really good, and then I'll sand it. But in the meantime, I can finish gluing some parts on the bottom here. I guess that's a toe, another toe pintle. I'm not sure. I guess they're both toe points. And then there's the handle to open the doors. So I'm going to cut those parts off. So we got A5, C23, T4, and T5. So let me get those cut off. They call me a coward, but this little handle here, I think I'm going to wait a bit to glue that on because it protrudes quite a bit, and I do not want that thing snapping off. So I'll wait on that part. Okay, that's glued in place. So now I'm going to jump back to the beginning of 10 here and glue these parts on. Now I'm doing this late version. That's the upper hull I use. So I need L16, F47, B34, B34. All right, so I glued these two pieces here, parts B34. Now, judging from the look, maybe there's some kind of a head cushion for when they go crazy four-wheeling off in the country and they're bouncing around in their seat and they whack their head, it won't hurt. Of course, that's just purely conjecture on my part. But here's something else to note. The dreaded ejector pin marks, okay? There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them here. Am I going to fix them? I am not. Why? Because they're facing down and it doesn't matter. As a matter of fact, I'm not even going to paint that part. And the reason being, and some people may call that cheating, but I'm the type of person that I only want to really focus on the stuff that is actually going to be visible. Okay? Or possibly visible. So like the dashboard. If you tilt it way back like that, you can see it. Otherwise you can't. But it is possible to see it. Now the only way you're going to see that is like with a dental mirror or something. And I ain't. Okay, hold on and listen. You may hear a fighter jet going over. We get them going over here quite a bit because we have an airport close by. We're right in the flight path. And it's pretty awesome. All right, sorry, distraction. Same with the ejector pin marks. If they're in a place, and most manufacturers nowadays do a good, there you can hear it again. Most of the manufacturers nowadays do a really good job of putting them in places where they're not visible or where they're the least visible. I know people get all bent out of shape. It's like, this is ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes there's no getting around it. You have to have them to get the parts out of the molds. So they can be annoying, but I'm not one of those kind of people that just freaks out about it and gets angry. But anyway, enough of that. So I'll glue this in place here. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue here just because I don't want it to flex around. It probably won't, but There we go, perfect. Okay, so that is the upper part. Now I need L36, which is this one-piece engine cover slash bonnet slash hood. So I'll cut that off and get that cleaned up. All right, there it is, fitted in place, and a little bit of glue strategically applied. And there we go. Just FYI, the aircraft that flew over in that last little segment was an F-18, probably out of China Lake. And it landed out at our airport. My son got to see it taxiing because his job is out by the airport. So yeah, pretty cool. Useless information, doesn't do anybody any good, but it's interesting nevertheless. Alrighty then. So let's move on to the final bit of step 11, which is the fire extinguisher, and then we'll move on to 12. All these parts are cleaned up, and both sides are pretty much identical. There's an additional part that goes on the other side, the exhaust, but this stuff is pretty simple here. That goes there like that, and then let's do this. Now this is dangerous because I've got my finger over it, and if I put glue on the wrong side, I could leave a fingerprint if it seeps through. So I'm just going to put a little tiny bit like that to hold it. Then I can flip it back over and add some more. Whenever I can, I like to add it put the glue in from the inside, especially on stuff like this, so it doesn't, because sometimes these joint or these seam lines right here are so close in tolerance you can see them, but if you put too much glue, or if you put it from this side and it's really super close, it'll just erase it just because it just melts it together. Okay, so then this part here goes like this. What I do in a case like this, when I can't really hold it and it won't stay in place, I'll put a little bit of cement there so as to be able to tack it into place, and then I will add more using the proper method for Tamiya extra thin and other of these runny cements. And then I'll use my tip of my blade here to make sure it's pressed down really flat like that. All right, so as I said, I've already done the other part, so we'll take a look at that. Now here's another one of those things that just makes the old Dragon just a little bit different than everybody else. So according to the instructions, this part, A26, glues onto A3 right here. Okay, like this. Okay, that is the most non-positive connection a person could make. It is not quite a 90-degree angle here and there, but it's not real positive. Now, a person could line it up and probably get it pretty close, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to, not follow the instructions and try and apply this in a way that it will fit a little bit better. See this? That right there goes in that square hole. Like that. There we go, like that. Now, that's a little bit better. So, again, I ain't telling you what to do, but this is the way I'm going to do it. Get that there. I'm going to do it all together because I want to make sure that it all lines up properly, but I think that's the way to go right there. Now on the sides here, there's like real faint line and a real faint 90-degree right there, so you know where that stuff is actually supposed to go. And where is it? So that would be the way to do it, I think. All right, so you get the idea. So before I do that though, I'm going to go ahead and glue this part here on, because I think it might be a little easier while it's off the vehicle. So let me cut those off, and that is the exhaust. So it's A20, 21, A3, and C6. Okay, this little piece right here I glued on off camera because it was kind of really small. But the nice thing is there is a pin on the back part of this part that drops down into this semicircular, semi-cylinder type thing. So all you have to do is get the back lined up and you're pretty good. Now I'll have to sand that a little bit, but I'm going to add a little bit more cement to it because I want to make sure that it's nice and firm. Like that. Okay, I'm ready to glue this together. Now, this calls for 3 pieces. It's 4 pieces, but 3 for what I'm talking about right now. We got A20, which is this part here. Then there's an A21, which is just that part. Then we have A3 and C6. So we've got A3 here, goes inside of this part, which it does, like that. Okay. And then it's supposed to go through here, like, this is, like, oh my goodness. Holy Toledo, like that. Okay, so this part is supposed to go in there, but it doesn't, because that is a half circle. That is a full circle. Even though it's a little bit smaller in diameter, it's still not going to fit in there. And then this piece goes over it like that. So what is the purpose of this? More of that interior detail that is like totally sealed up, like the bottom of this, where the fuel tank and all that stuff is? I don't know. So with that, I'm not going to put it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and just glue this part here, thusly, and then put that part there, and glue that, like that. I'll see, that's why I'm doing this now before I install this on the vehicle. All right, so we got that. That's the thingy there. All right, so I'm gonna let that dry for a minute, and then we'll install A26 and A8. Here's what I've decided to do. You know, again, these things, just because of all these complex angles and stuff, it's gonna take some clamp work and everything else. So I'm gluing these on first, and I'm gonna let that dry really well. Then I'll be able to put this in place, because that square or that rectangular peg right there is going to hold that in place, and that I'm going to have to kind of flex up to fit underneath there. So I need to glue this in place, and it's got to dry really well so it doesn't pop loose. So I'm going to do that on this side and the other side, and then I'll come back and do these. All right, so I was able to snap this into place. It's pretty easy. This tab goes in that hole, and then it's just a matter of, see how off that is, snapping it up into place there like that. I'm not going to glue that yet, but I am going to glue this, and then I'll push that other part up into place once the rest of this dries. Just a matter of going around and gluing a little bit at a time. I'm only gluing that, I'm not gluing any of this back here. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side here. And then I can move on. And while that is drying, I will cut all of these extra parts, tools, and fittings and such, and yeah, get those ready to go. Now I can glue this part here. So it all fits pretty good. It's just a matter of tweaking it into place. So I'm going to glue this one, and I'll flip it over and finish up this side. All right, so that front part is dried up really well. So now I can glue this. And see, that's what I'm talking about. Gluing this together and this together beforehand, probably not a good idea. Depending on how everything else goes together, it might be okay, but my thinking is this is the better way. For good or ill, I have opted to glue this handle in place on the back doors. So let's hope that it doesn't get snapped off at some point. So there's that. Now I'm ready to glue on these extra parts on this front fender. So we've got the light, the headlight, which fits nicely. See a little bit of leftover sprue gate here. There we go. All right, so that's going to go there. A little bit of cement like that. Make sure it's pressed down good like that. Then we got the old pick here, and that faces like that. And that's awesome. The holes do not line up with the holes there. See that? Close together, far apart. So let's check something here. Ha! Scratch that. Yeah, I'm a dope. The axe goes over here, not the pick. It happens, folks. There we go. And then the pick over here. Like that. Okay. Get a little bit of cement here and here, and then a little bit here and here. Those will be painted in place. All right, so then we need, I wasn't going to do these either, but I'm gonna, because I don't want to have to worry about painting them by themselves later. C32, we've got C32 and C39. One has a rear view mirror attached. Got another bit of thing here, part C22, which goes, whoa, flying across the desk. Did you see that? Didn't lose it either. That's pretty stellar. goodness. Wow, that was easier than using tweezers. All right, and that goes there. Like that, okay. All right, so those extra accoutrements are attached to the front. So, wow, you want to hear something wacky? Boy, I jumped ahead. I wasn't actually supposed to glue those on yet, but I'm glad I did, because it shows the tracks in place, and that would have created some havoc trying to put those on there. So see, it's showing that these sides are all one big piece, and there's no way that would have worked. Now see, so that would have been problematic, but we got it. So I think I'm going to call this quits for this video, and so ends part number 4 of the Dragon 1/35 scale SdKfz 251/21 drilling. When we come back next time, we'll pick up with step number 13, which will involve the tracks, and then we'll move on into the gun mount. So if you don't want to watch this whole ginormous long video, I will have a link in the description box, as I mentioned at the beginning, and I will have a link on the end screen so you can watch a condensed version of these steps. So, as always, thanks for watching Plastic Models by a Regular Dude, and I will see you all later.